Rob Reiner joins us. For almost 20 years, he has directed many memorable films. Here's a look at some of his work.
What?
Are you the Miracle Max who worked for the king all those years?
The king's thinking son fired me, and thank you so much for bringing up such a painful subject. While you're at it, why don't you give me a nice paper cut and pour lemon juice on it? We're closed.
What we do is if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly. One louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom that I provide and then questions the manner in which I provide it. I would rather you just said thank you and went on your way. Otherwise, I suggest you pick up a weapon and stand a post. Either way, I don't give a damn what you think you are entitled to.
There is no such thing as an ass. Just like there's no such thing as the perfect marriage, the perfect job, the perfect child. The whole notion of staying together and living happily ever after. All illusions.
So you're saying you don't believe in everlasting love?
You're seeing the ass again, and not the tops of the legs.
Misery Chastain cannot be dead.
Annie, in 1871, women often died in childbirth. But her spirit is the important thing, and Misery's spirit is still alive.
I don't want her dead! I want her! And you murdered her!
Mickey's a mouse, Donald's a duck, Pluto's a dog. What's Goofy? If I can only have one food for the rest of my life, that's easy. Pez. Cherry-flavored Pez. No question about it.
Goofy's a dog. He's definitely a dog.
He can't be a dog. He wears a hat and drives a car.
No, you did not have great sex with Sheldon.
I did too.
No, you didn't. A Sheldon can do your income taxes. If you need a root canal, Sheldon's your man. But humping and pumping is not Sheldon's strong suit. It's the name. Do it to me, Sheldon. You're an animal, Sheldon. Ride me, big Sheldon. Doesn't work.
Do I date a lot?
Yeah.
No, how about you?
Me? Well, lately I seem to be going out on a lot of first dates.
Well, then you're experienced at this.
Oh, yeah, you can ask me anything.
Well, how are we doing so far?
It's hard to say at this point. So far, it's just your typical first date stuff.
Damn, and I want to be different from the other guys.
His latest film is a romantic comedy. It is called Alex and Emma, and it stars Luke Wilson and Kate Hudson. It is loosely based on the Dostoevsky novella, The Gambler. Here is the trailer from that film.
Wilson. The reader doesn't know who he's going to wind up with. You hook him in. Kate Hudson.
She does not love him.
Kate Hudson.
I was just washing my hands.
And Kate Hudson.
Who does he end up with?
See? Hooked.
He stood looking into her eyes. Should he kiss her? He knew in his heart he had no choice.
Alex and Emma.
I am pleased to welcome Rob Reiner back to this table. We got a lot to talk about. First of all, are you happiest directing?
In my theatrical life, yes. I would say yes.
Well, you mean something else is more important to you now, which is the whole outside life. You have your involvement in politics and public issues and children. And
yes, and then that ultimately gives me more pleasure. It's interesting as I've gone along. When I started out as an actor and I became a director, people would ask me, what do you like better, acting or directing? And I would say, well, I like directing because it's more involving. It gives me a chance to express more of my talents, and acting is fun. It's like recess. Right. Now I look upon directing as recess because that's a fun thing to do. Since the last 4-5 years, I've been involved in government in California, and I'm chairing a commission that oversees a $650 million a year program for early childhood development in California. And seeing, programs put into place, preschool programs, health care for young children, and child care and parent education, these things, and seeing how it profoundly changes a child's trajectory, and whether or not a child is going to be, a toxic or non-toxic member of society is in a large part determined by what we do in those early years. To see that gives me tremendous pleasure and tremendous satisfaction. So I've seen that, that's happened with me, and now that I look at directing as, okay, I love doing it. It's a lot of fun. I get a lot of pleasure out of it. But this other thing is much more fulfilling.
I want to come back to this other thing in a few minutes. We'll come back to that. Tell me about Alex and Emma.
Alex and Emma is, I love this movie because I've made a lot of romantic comedies. and they're hard.
Yes, I would say.
They're hard to find. It's hard to find a good, original, fresh idea. And when this came to my attention, I thought, wow, what a clever way to tell a romantic comedy story. It's about a writer who is writing a novel, and he's taking from his real life, he's investing it in his work, and then his work turns back onto him and informs his real life. And I thought, what a wonderful way to have these two parallel stories going, feeding onto each other, and it almost was like a magician doing a trick for an audience, explaining the trick as you do the trick, and then hopefully the audience is still amazed by how the trick turns out. Yeah. I said, what a wonderful balancing act to do. And so I thought, wow, this is a very clever way to do a very honest, real romantic comedy.
And Kate Hudson is the new Meg Ryan?
Well, so I think she's the new Kate Hudson. I mean, she is extraordinary. She's, first of all, absolutely adorable. Yeah. I mean, when I first met her, I fell instantly and madly in love with her. She is so sweet and so charming.
Start off with being in love with her mother first.
Her mother, yeah, her mother's a terrific lady. Goldie's a great, great lady. But Kate is, she lights up the room. She does all those classic things that you want a movie star to do. She lights up a room. She's charming. She's sexy. She's funny. She's a wonderful actress, both comedically and dramatically. It's almost not fair that somebody should have so much stuff going on.
And Luke Wilson?
Luke Wilson is a throwback for me to like those great, what I call unsweaty actors, like Jimmy Stewart and Joel McCrea from the 30s and 40s. And these guys who just are very laid back, very cool, no effort, just things kind of just ease out of them. And yet he's got this weird kind of quirky sense of humor that just kind of infiltrates everything and makes this wonderful persona on screen. And the two of them together, they've got great chemistry.
What's the hardest thing about a romantic comedy? Let's assume you got the chemistry. Let's assume you got the right character. You got the actors you want. I mean, is this now slam dunk for you?
No, the hardest.
And let me rephrase the question.
Yeah.
We got script.
Yeah.
We got chemistry.
Yeah.
We got actors.
Yeah. Well, then you've done it. If you've done all that, you've done it. The trickiest thing, the hardest.
Getting up there is not easy.
Yeah, the script is the toughest part, and then you're 80% home if you get the right script. And to me, the kinds of romantic comedies that I like are reality-based, character-driven romantic comedies. They're not high-concept, screwball-type romantic comedies, although people love those. I'm not particularly, drawn to those kinds of romantic comedies. And to me, the hardest thing is to get something that is real, that is reality-based, that shows how men and women really do interact with each other, and then also get laughs. That's the hardest part, to make that balance, and that you hopefully get in the script stage.
We are going to talk about your political involvement. Do you think that you have been distracted from doing your best work? Because sometimes people will compare. You've had such an illustrious career, and they say, it's almost like they want to see you top this.
Yeah.
Has your work suffered because you have matured, you have a successful company, you're involved in everything?
Yeah, I don't know. That's for other people to decide. I do know that it is difficult to balance the work I do, the political work I do in government, and also, the film work, because they are totally contrapuntal. I mean, these are two different mindsets that don't easily blend with each other. So I know that has been a struggle for me. But what I've tried to do, and at least before I did Alex and Emma, I gave myself essentially a 4-year period where I focused on getting the First Five program in California up and running. And so that's what I focused on. And then when I did my film, I tried to
Now, why did you come back and do a film? Because the stuff that you're doing outside of your professional life has huge importance.
Yes, it does. I felt comfortable to be able to do a film at this point because I think I had gotten the program onto some fairly firm footing. We are now in all 58 counties in California. We've got school readiness programs set up in all of these counties. We've got over 100 school readiness resource centers set up. We've got universal preschool beginning in Los Angeles County for every 4-year-old in Los Angeles County. We've got universal health care coverage in a number of counties. The program is pretty much now up and running, and I felt secure enough to be able to back away a little bit in order to do a film. Now, the next step is to start thinking about how we can use preschool education as a big linchpin for overhauling public education in California. That's the next step. And so I'm going to have to think about what my next step is going to be in terms of my career and in terms of wanting to accomplish
and tell
that.
me what the options might be.
Well, there's a lot of ways to do it. There are a lot of ways to do it.
I'm cut right to the chase.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a movie term. There you go. Now we're back to movies.
Yeah. I mean, people say that Rob Reiner is a logical Democratic nominee for governor.
Right.
In the same breath that they say that Arnold Schwarzenegger is a logical Republican candidate for governor.
Yeah, the Terminator versus the meathead.
That's what they say.
Yeah, we've had.
But politics. That's one of the options is to seek elective office.
Yeah, that is an option, and that's not something I take lightly because, first of all, I have 3 young children, and how it would impact them is very important to me. So I have to really think it through in terms of how it would affect their lives. And second is to make sure that I have a real vision of what I want to accomplish and how to accomplish it. It's not something to do for vanity reasons. Right. I don't need to be famous. I am famous. And I don't need the ego stroke of doing that. It is purely a function of, do I have a vision? Can I accomplish something? And how to go about doing it? If I feel I can do that and I feel it's not going to negatively impact on my family in any kind of dramatic way, then it's something to consider.
You have a vision. I mean, you know what your politics are.
Yeah.
I mean, I asked you who you're supporting for president. You said, without missing a beat, Howard Dean. Howard Dean is you know where he comes from. He's a progressive left Democrat.
Yeah, Howard Dean, though, if the truth be known about Howard Dean, I think, first of all, I think he's the only one that could possibly beat George Bush in 2004. I think he's the only one who can distinguish himself and set himself apart from George Bush because he stands for very, very different things. Now, the truth be told about Howard Dean, he's not a namby-pamby liberal. This is a tough guy. This is a hardcore fiscal conservative. Right. This is not some, tax and spend liberal. Yeah. He's not like that.
So we can look at his record in Vermont and say this is a
absolutely.
Guy who
He's balanced 12 budgets in Vermont, and Vermont is one of the. Now you can say it's a small state, but then they have a small amount of resources. You still have to balance what the budget of the the resources that you have, and it's one of the few states in this country that's not running a deficit right now. You got all over the country, the states are running a deficit, and the reason it's not running a deficit is because he has set aside rainy day fund. He has set aside money, knowing full well, just like you have to balance your budget, I have to balance my budget. You set aside money for when times get tough. And he did that. And now in Vermont, they don't have to cut any education or health care programs. No social programs are being cut. That, to me, is a responsible, hardcore
Here's
fiscal
the issue
conservative.
for him, and I said this to him when he sat in that very chair within this past month. You have this idea, can he win?
Right. And you're going to ask that question until he does. Can he win?
Can he get the nomination? Is this guy who's...
Can he get the nomination? That's the key. If he gets the nomination, he has the far greater chance of beating George Bush than any of the other candidates.
Because to use an old hackneyed political expression, it's a difference, not an echo.
Yeah. Here's my dream scenario for how it works. And by the way, I haven't talked to Howard about this, but you see Wesley Clark.
You got Dean and Clark together?
That's a great
ticket. Your ticket?
That's a great ticket because, you got Wesley Clark, who's brilliant. He's a Rhodes Scholar, Supreme NATO commander, and Vietnam War. He's been in, and Kosovo, he can shore up NATO. The national security part of the ticket. But here's my dream scenario: you've got Iowa. Now, Iowa's up for grabs. The touters that say Dick Gephardt's got a good shot in Iowa, maybe does. But Dean comes in second or a close third in Iowa. He goes to New Hampshire. He wins New Hampshire, which is a distinct possibility. I think he will win New Hampshire. You go to South Carolina.
He's running neck and neck with John.
Right now, with John Kerry, and the undecideds are swinging. I think going to swing to Dean at the end of the day. So he wins that. He goes into South Carolina. In South Carolina, you've got. Maybe Edwards does well, maybe Bob Graham does well, and Dean, hangs in there a second or a third and a close there. So out of all of those primaries, by the end of February, you don't have any clear front runner. And Lieberman somewhere in the mix of all of that.
Right.
You go to California in the beginning of March, and this may, because they've moved their primary way up, this may be the first year that California really
has an impact.
And who's going to be the nominee.
Generally, votes after it's already been decided.
And if Dean can win California, and I believe he's got the best shot to win California, that's the way he can get the nomination. And then you know, he's tough.
Okay.
He's tough. He's going to fight hard.
All right, but here is the question. Bill Clinton, who looks at politics with really a smart eye,
yes,
says that any Democratic nominee, nobody's smart about politics.
Yeah.
Any Democratic nominee has to pass a national security threshold.
That's right.
You don't get a national security threshold by putting Wesley Clark on your ticket, in the same way that George Bush didn't get something by putting Dick Cheney on the ticket. You got to pass it on your own.
Yes, you do, but it helps. I mean, a lot of what the criticism of George Bush was that he was weak on foreign policy, that he didn't know the name of the president of Pakistan, that crazy thing. Dick Cheney was put there for a reason. And
what was the reason?
Well, to shore up his foreign policy credentials. He had a former Secretary of Defense. There was a lot of discussion of Colin Powell, if you remember. Right. Even before, there was talk of, you know, maybe Rumsfeld coming back. You got the sense that, you know, the joke was he was surrounding himself with the adults. That's part of an image that you project, and you're right. You have to win it on your own. And by the time it comes down to, you know, the general election campaign, Howard Dean, I guarantee you, will be up and knowledgeable about all of these issues. He's up and knowledgeable now. I mean, he knows more. He's traveled more than you know George Bush has done now.
So you think he's got the right stuff?
I do indeed.
All right. Tell me what all of your work for children has done. How has it made a difference in the life of children?
Well, first of all, you've got children who wouldn't have had health care insurance who have it in California. You had kids who wouldn't have had preschool education who have it. And we now know, based on all the studies that have done, that if a child has preschool, it has more likelihood that they're going to have success in school and later on in life. Absolutely. It levels the playing field, especially in California, which is in Los Angeles County, 0 to 5, the 60% of the kids are Latino, and a lot of them, the parents don't speak English. So giving them that preschool, that even start, that head start that gets them on a level playing field is critical. We know, based on all of the studies that we've done and the work we've done, that these children are having a chance. They've got a chance now to succeed. Whereas, you know, we see dropout rates, we see kids not going on to college. We know that in places where they've instituted early childhood programs, preschool programs, and healthcare programs, the dropout rates go way down. The college entrance goes way up. And these become productive citizens. We know it.
Your involvement in this grew out of your own children?
No. This came out of my own exploration of my own life and knowing and understanding the basic reality that influences you had early on in your life had a direct and major impact on how you functioned.
So tell me how Carl Reiner influenced your life. Other than the fact that he took you and you could hang around with some of the funniest and smartest people in show business.
That was one good thing.
Yeah, right.
That was one good thing. Well, you know, there are pluses and minuses. I have a good life, and I have great parents, and they've done. Listen, I'm functioning. I'm making a living. I'm married. I have 3 kids.
Right.
But as I went through a difficult period in my life when I got divorced and I was single for 10 years, I went through a very difficult introspective period where I could see earliest influences in my life playing themselves out in how I related to colleagues, to friends, to members of the opposite sex. I could see how those things played out, and I wondered, was there anything in that, in what we can be doing to help parents with their children to giving them a better start in life? I didn't know how it could translate into public policy. It wasn't until later on where I started to gain a little bit of a foothold in terms of a power base and starting to reach out to people and realizing, after seeing so many news reports about kids shooting somebody up in a school or in a McDonald's, and seeing the same news report over and over where people would come on, the teacher or the person from the choir said, oh, he was always a sweet boy, very polite, he never bothered anybody. And I said, there's a disconnect here. Nobody just picks up a gun and starts shooting people unless there's some disconnect somewhere along the line. And then when you research and study back, you see that there's neglect, there's abuse, there's all kinds of dysfunction that led to a child going off, on the wrong course. So I started thinking about it, and I reached out to a lot of people and started putting together the program that we did in California.
It's great to see you. Come back here anytime.
Okay, I will.
And you might be running for governor.
Well, we'll have to. The jury is out on this.
Well, the jury's out on Craig Davis too, isn't it?
Well, hopefully he'll weather this storm, because this is not the way to run a democracy. Not the way to do.
This democracy out there is what, the sixth largest.
Well, it's the sixth
economy in the world.
Sixth largest economy in the world. The idea that somebody, with 15% or 20% of the vote could then be the governor of California is not, to me, the way.
And if it comes down to that, name recognition and Schwarzenegger will be
means a lot. Means a lot. Yeah.
Arnold the governor.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
It's great to see you.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us. See you next time.